that we're taking the issue of illegal mining quite seriously. But as the chair indicated, you focus on this area, and then there's another area where there is a lapse. But I think also I want to indicate that you will see that there are other processes, particularly with regards to the Companies Act, that also in this particular case have had some influence, and Sia will go into that. There is a view that nothing is happening. Yes, I think the community is correct, it's not enough, but I believe that the work that we've been doing together with SAPS has yielded some successes, perhaps not in this area, but I can say safely that in the Northwest, in particular, Blackstone, Orkney area, there has been some successes, even though they find other ways of coming back. The issue of organized military people. It's not my space, but I think it is important to realize that this is akin to a war, right? Because you have former military personnel or former security services of other countries being involved in this. You have people who are dealing with explosives, who come and basically demolish whatever system, I think CGS and Mintech will talk with that later. So this is an organized, criminal activity, and it does have foreign influence. No doubt about it. It is, a lot of the people that get arrested by SARS. We had an operation some 3-4 weeks ago in the northern state, a very successful operation. Hundreds of people arrested there, but again, undocumented foreign nationals. So this is the situation that we find ourselves in. As to lapses on our side, I think we do accept that there are lapses, and I think it is something that we're going to have to look at and see in as far as things that we could control, what could we have done differently. So I would, with that, share, with your permission, hand over to Sia and to talk to take us through the particular focus on the area that
Thank you, DDG. Good morning to the honorable chairperson. Good morning to honorable members. DG and all protocol observers. As requested by the DDG, I'll just take the meeting to the presentation that the department has prepared for this. In particular, we focus to the area where there is a license for Mohale gold. In terms of the presentation outline, the purpose of the presentation, as the DDG indicated, we'll touch slightly on the background, the history.
DG, wait. I forgive you, but I want to do that next time. Caesar knows. You can't give us something that you must read on the board, except if you send us to send it to our gadget, or it is confidential. don't have that document. But we can continue because we don't have, I'm just saying, because it's you, not because you don't bad, just because it's you. I know we can get favor, but we don't work without a document. Because the moment you finish that thing there, we must then say, can you go to that page? But if it's here in front of me or here, I can refer you here, rather than taking you to refer me to where I want to refer you. Continue.
As I was indicating, that the presentation outline will look at the history of Mohale Gold license, the non-compliance, the intervention by the department, the issue of the environmental liability, the current developments and the challenges, and then the reflection on the previous visit by PDC and the recommendations thereof. As in terms of the background, the DDG has highlighted it, that in particular we are here because of the illegal mining that we find ourselves in, and it is one of the unfortunate incidences that as we try to close one gap on one side and find that there is another opening on the other. To give a summarized overview regarding the Mohale Gold, as indicated, the impact of illegal mining and the violent nature of the activities that are dedicated out of time, and again, as indicated, reflecting on the recommendation. In terms of the background, as indicating, there's illegal mining and trafficking of precious metals. It is one of the contributing factors that relates to the environmental degradation, and which again led to what had happened in August, where the 8 women were sadly violated. And maybe just to also emphasize that where the incident happened, it is an area where there is a mine dump that is not operational, but being obviously invaded by illegal miners. Perhaps while emphasizing the point of the site itself, there's been a lot of media report that it is an abandoned or an ownerless mine. Maybe just to emphasize that it is a non-operational, there is a license that is issued in the particular site, hence the presentation focuses on the name of the company called Mohale Gold, which is issued under license number 206MR. So it is important that to emphasize that it is not an abandoned mine. With regards to Mohale Gold, maybe just as a highlight to emphasize that it is 100% owned by famous Mintails South Africa, which was currently under liquidation. The mining license for Mohale Gold was issued in July 2003, which was under the Minerals Act. And it was issued for a period up to July 2011. And obviously back then with the EMP of that mining license being approved at the same time when the mining license was issued. And during the life of that license, there was a conversion application which was lodged to the regional office in 2008, which was subsequently granted in September 2011 under the reference number 206MR for GP, now replacing the old order mining license number, which is the mining license 12 of 2003. And that right was subsequently issued in April 2014 up until 2029, which is the point I was emphasizing earlier to the honorable members, that it is a valid license, be it currently not being operational. Having said that, the environmental management plan of the conversion was never processed or approved. The point I'm emphasizing, Chairperson, here is that in 2002, when the mining license was issued, in terms of the old order or Minerals Act, the issue of environmental liability was not an area of focus. As you know, the Minerals Act, in terms of the environmental liability, that the mines were not really forced or compelled to do the rehabilitation. But during the conversion process, that's where the right was granted with an intention that as they go along, they will be able to sort out or make sure that their financial or environmental management plan is in line with what the new order in terms of Minerals and Petroleum Resources Development Act requires of them to do so. As I've just indicated with regards to the Mohale non-compliance, and I'm quite aware that when the honorable members visited the region, they were aware of some of the, or it was presented that there were a number of orders and directives that were issued to Mohale Gold for non-compliance, be it in terms of financial provision, with a number of directives that were issued dating back from 2015, and subsequently to even other areas of their mining license that relates to mine economics in terms of a mining program, where when the inspection was conducted in 2017, there was a discovery that most of the operations or that was being processed at the site on where the mine was taking place were mainly not from the operations of Mohale Gold, and they were coming from somewhere else, and that's where the department or the region at that stage then requested an advice as to where exactly that almost 60 to 70% of the ore that they were shooting on the plant was not coming from the area where they were mining. With the mine having failed to produce that, they were then given a directive in terms of section 93 in 2018 and instructed to stop the operation. And obviously then the mine did inform the regional office that they will be suspending their open cast operation on the basis that having been stopped from operating or processing ore from the other mine, it was no longer financially viable for them to continue processing. They would look at other means. At that stage, they were also advised to say they must then apply for the mine to be put under care maintenance, of which never really materialized. It is on that point that I emphasize the last bullet that the license itself or the mine never really came and started the process of indicating that they are abandoning the site. Having done the section 93, which was then issued to the company, in the normal course of following the administrative justice, towards either issuing section 47, they were escalated at section 93 to head office, and that's where they started engaging. The response from head office was that having looked at their financial provision, which was not sufficient at all in terms of what the financial liability was and in terms of what had been paid into as a form of a guarantee. If at any stage we had to cancel the license, indirectly to mean the department is taking the state is now taking the liability of that, which is almost close to 400 million. So the other option the state tried to do was to see how we can engage the department or rather the mine and other entities to make sure that they can keep the lights on and fulfill the requirements in terms of their operation. There was then a process of the business rescue and followed by the liquidation process, the provisional liquidation that ensued, and the department was engaged, be it even at a later stage as to be expected in terms of the NPLDA, that when there is a liquidation process, the regional office needs to be aware of that and inform the legal services in time so that we can then be able to either register as preferred creditors within that process, or try to make sure that we secure or recall the guarantee immediately before we get into a liquidation stage. Because more often than not, once we get to the stage, the liquidators would not really allow for any funds to be redirected for any other use. With regards to the liquidation process, they did indicate that there was no sale for a mining right and associated assets. DMRE did accept and offer to assist or assess together with the liquidators in terms of the offers that were coming in. There were then other companies that had showed interest, but it was not necessarily for under Mohale Gold. It was on other adjacent properties that were being contracted to be mined by Mintails, which either it was West Vets, Monarch, as well as minerals and mining reclamation services, which were then ceded, or there was a session to sell those companies to a company called Amateur Mining, which was then subsequently processed as such. But the one for Mohale Gold under the license number 206 remained with Mohale during the process of the liquidation, so they were not affected by such. Having engaged with head office, there was that section 93 that was issued earlier in 2018 was rescinded on the basis that the mine had made commitments that they would make good in terms of their financial commitment, which unfortunately never really materialized. Just as a snapshot in terms of the liability as well as the financial provision in relation to the mine itself, as I've said earlier on, I think the honorable members are familiar with this picture, that in terms of the environmental liability of Mohale Gold was assessed and sitting at about 380 million rand, but they've only made a financial provision which was made back then when the mining license 12 of 2003 was being processed in the form of a bank guarantee, which we confirmed that money is still available. So there is still a shortfall of about 380 million, meaning, as I also indicated to the honorable members, that if the department had moved to say we are now processing a section 47 and now cancelling the right, indirectly to mean that the state will have to take over the liability of that 380 million. Hence the option was to say find means and ways of how best we can assist this company to get out of the situation that it was in. As part of the rehabilitations that they indicated that they will do was to conduct those reclamation activities, and obviously with an intention that once the area, the facility has been rehabilitated, it can then be open for future development in terms of the housing or whatever the area that can be used for. Maybe just to also paint the picture that within the area, within Western, there's been a number of activities that have happened. This is just the first page. The areas are highlighted in red. We refer to some of the shaft that has been sealed since that time, which is up to about 52 of those shafts that have been sealed thus far. But there is still some, about 26, that still needs to be closed. So there is some work that has been done, even though it is not yet at a level where we can say most areas have been dealt with. maybe in terms of the current developments, just to put the honorable members into the picture, as I also indicated that part of the intervention by head office was to see how best we can resuscitate the area and be able to make sure that the dam is processed or there is financial liability that has been paid. There was a correspondence that was received by the regional office, lodged by the right holder, as I also indicated, that we were not abandoning Mohali Gold to conduct the surface reclamation. And part of the document of the environmental authorization that they've submitted, there are indications that there is a process that they can be acquired by Pan-African Resources, which they are still currently doing a due diligence in that regard. And what we are busy looking at in terms of the environmental authorization is to determine the quantum, and then if at any stage Pan-African Resources conclude their process and they are interested in acquiring Mohali Gold, the first condition is to make sure that they fulfill the environmental liability by paying it in full before anything else is being processed. As I said, it was just something that was indicated on environmental authorization, but we have not yet received the application for cession in particular. With regards to some of the challenges that I came across and maybe try to put to the attention of the honorable members, is that there are, as we regulate mining industry not necessarily using MPRDA, there are other pieces of legislation that comes in particular like National Environmental Management Act, which is commonly known as NEMA. There are kind of transitional provisions that are currently there in terms of the financial provisions, where it indicates that the holder of the mining right who either applied for such a right or permit prior to 20 November 2015, the right will, regardless when the right or permit was obtained, by no later than 19 June 2022, they shall remain compliant with, they must comply with the regulation by that date, but they will be regarded as having complied. And I'm aware that even the 19th of June has been revised. There is a new date that has, I think, up until March 2023. So in most cases, you find that those holders that will have applied for right prior to that date, they have that leeway of saying we cannot cancel their license on the basis of not being compliant with the financial provision because there is an extension of time that has been highlighted. But perhaps as a last challenge that I'd like to also highlight to members of honorable members is that the condition of conducting compliance inspection in the sites where in particular illegal mining is taking place, it's highly unsafe for colleagues to go to. Hence, it's one of those things that maybe results to not having a consistent visit by the officials, but the DG and under the leadership of the DDG are finding means and ways of how we can advise or suggest in some of the areas. When I was talking to DDG yesterday, I highlighted one area where he had called me a night before and said, can you go to a particular site because there was a complaint. It was in Rivale, some mining, I think PPC members will be aware, honorable members will be aware of the school that is being, there's a illegal mining activities that happen next to that site. Just by arriving, hardly having walked about 100 meters onto the site, we were already surrounded with my team that is somewhere around March. I had to take pictures lying down and just send to the DD that now we're being surrounded. We've not even arrived at the place where you asked us to go to. And this instruction, we find a way of getting out of that place as quickly as possible. So I'm just trying to highlight the issue of the unsafe part of it. Yes, we could have taken other precautionary measures by going there, being fully aware of what is happening, but at this stage we thought we were just going to a school, we're just going to peek through what's happening behind the school. But within a space of 100 meters, we're already surrounded. This is in reflecting to the recommendations that the members PPC had made when they last visited the region of Gauteng. Some of those 7 areas of recommendation are indicated where the department was asked to make sure that they identified any specify the gaps between the mining insolvency and the company law. At this stage, I'm aware that the department does still looking into that process and ensure that in going forward, it is important that as regional offices, not necessarily Gauteng, once we become aware of any business rescue process, we ought to inform legal services and make sure that legal services register as preferent creditors with whoever the liquidation process it is. And obviously with the process of trying to align what the MPRDA, NEMA and the Companies Act provide in that regard. The MRE is still committed in ensuring that mines are fully funded at all times. And ever since the MPRDA came into effect, and subsequently to NEMA coming as well in 8 December 2014, all new applications that are being processed in terms of NEMA, we make sure that they are fully funded. The gaps that you will still find are those licenses like the one I've highlighted now with regards to the licenses that were issued during the transition period between the Minerals Act and the MPRDA. The MR should get a specific legal opinion on these complex issues. Again, it's indicated that the department is continuously engaging with the defaulting right holders in order to exempt the state from incurring the liability, in particular those that have converted rights, and those that had the old order that had to convert into a new order, and also taking into cognizance the fact that as and when we come across these challenges, it is also not practically possible to be amending legislation at every level, but we need to find means of how best we can make around it, including the one of engaging the right holders. Also to just, as indicated with the issue of the business rescue and the liquidation process, to make sure that we inform the legal services and liaise with all other state departments that are involved in the process. With regards to DMR, must report to the committee department in what it's doing or doing different in the future to avert the situation. At this stage, as the region or the regional office, to always make sure that we inform in this case, the legal services, and make sure that they also register as creditors to secure those financial rehabilitation or to recall or call up whatever guarantee they can later. About the effort that the department has made to hold the directors or shareholders of, in this case, maintains liable for environmental debt. The DMRE is in pursuit of that option on the basis that even if we were to do that, but if we don't get to recover the full amount, you find the directors not being able to settle whatever the debt that I highlighted, which is about 380 million, but we will, as a lender of a last resort, look into that option. The MR must actively ensure that licenses of mine goes with responsibility and accountability. The department will continuously monitoring including the issue of directives and compliance notices for those non-compliant companies that has been going on ever since as and when we identify areas of default. The point about the MR should further explore the regulatory gaps resulting from the business rescue processes and come up with regulations to fully ensure that environmental compliance during the period when the mine is experiencing financial distress. That is the process I was referring to in terms of the transitional arrangement, that yes, we will be continuously engaging with Department of Environmental Affairs in relation to that. But as and when there are other interim measures that put in place, it makes it difficult for such amendments to be effective. And the last one, which being DMR should design and implement a standardized approach when dealing with the relaxation of financial provision. Maybe just to emphasize that yes, we do engage, but on cases where the financial provision might not be possible to relax, it's areas where the land has already been disturbed. And the NEMA, as the Act, does not also allow for such a provision. We still commit that holders of rights have an option to utilize the approved method of financial provision in terms of NEMA. That should be the end of the presentation.
That's the end of the presentation. With your permission, Chair, and before we hand over back to you, I will just summarize wrap up on the presentation.
No, thank you, Kiki. I know my voice does not carry, that's why I'm standing. Firstly, to apologize for the lapse in printing and the English and effort underway to print the document as speed. But also to just indicate that the business rescue process, I think we will have to engage TTIC, because I think in many instances we found that we get left behind. One, two, it suspends any enforcement of existing, the directives in terms of the APRP. Then the other issue is that at the moment we think that we engaged with the former regional manager who left in June last year, because we also had to get a sense of when he left, where was the process. So we engaged with him when this happened, but we also engaged with Mukhaleko, former CEO. And the sense that we got from engaging is that the Pan-African resources effort to take over this probably is the one that has the best chance of success. Otherwise, the state will then have to carry this burden of 18 years. We are likely to get, that 20 million from the director, as said. So I think we will be seized with this. We are going to continue to engage the Pan-African resources, find out whether they are really serious. If they are not, we then have to look at other options. But as things stand now, they are the only ones that look promising, but they have not submitted any application to the things there. So I want to leave it there, and just to say that we tried, you can see at the end, we tried to respond to the recommendations that had been made in 2018. And I think we did see that there is a gap in terms of us, doing knowledge, managing knowledge, because, it took us a while to actually get to the that is something.
Okay, thank you very much. Nana, I know, Mr. Makubela, when they say when the tough gets going, the voices can be much softer. So we understand that. Let me not say anything for now. Just give a round to my dear honorable members. I see the hand of Honorable Masaule, the hand of Honorable Lorema. Now, Honorable Masaule, Honorable Galenish. Is there someone I'm leaving out? I don't know. This is a political meeting. Your turn is coming. It might be a frying one.
No,
No, sorry. Relax, don't rush. Okay.
thank you very much.
Just take some notes now, how the things are going.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to the DG and the team, SAPS, and Home Affairs. Chair, I've been battling whether I should say something or not because of how I may say it. But you did warn me that we may bruise them in the process. And did you allow me to bruise you with just a question? I'm not going to engage the presentation. I'm just going to ask a question. If you were to be given an opportunity to go and address the community today in a hall and make this presentation, do you think you would make it out alive? My view is not. You wouldn't make it alive. We are sitting in a crisis that needs responses. And I thought that, Chair, we're going to hear about what is being done with the crisis that we're sitting on. Not in some role here, but generally in South Africa. We're a committee of the National Assembly, not of Roteport or something. A comprehensive kind of an analysis and recommendations would have been welcome. But I didn't hear that. And I want to ask a question, a brutal question. Do you think you would make it alive if you were to take this presentation to the community? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Got a number of questions about the bigger picture, but I'm going to confine myself to Mintails. I'd like to know what specific steps the department has taken to hold the directors of Mintails and associated companies responsible. I'd like to know the state of the assets of Mintails. We know about the liability, 380 million around, do you really think that somebody is going to pay to take over the license when it comes with a liability of 380 million? Should the department not accept reality that it's not going to get that money? Or is there an asset we don't know about? I believe there was a gold plant that Mintails controlled, where the security was removed and the plant has been stripped recently, within a matter of days. So, are you being realistic about this? Now, I'd like to know whether any activities are taking place on the land that was mined by Mintails, specifically the area described as 132. I believe that there is a company called Amache Mining, which is working those areas now. And furthermore, I believe that the former CEO of Mintails, one Eddie Milne, is involved in Amache Mining. And furthermore, I believe that the former head of the department in Gauteng, Sunday Mabaso, who allowed Mintails to mine illegally, effectively, for 6 years, is now acting as a consultant to Amache Mining. I'd like to comment on all those, please.
Okay. Are we done, Madam? Okay. Namato.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going because my voice is a bit.
But you also represent your challenge. It's fine.
I see. I think I also want to just greet everyone in the meeting. Pass my greetings to my committee, the department, SAPS, and Home Affairs. I think all of us sitting here in this meeting today, we're not really sure what's happening with this report in relation to the bigger picture and the fact that we're sitting in a crisis in this country. The one thing, or rather a very disturbing tone that I'm hearing specifically in Intel, is that it is either the department keeps engaging, which at this, from my hearing, I'm hearing it as we're begging these people. It's either we're begging them to pay, or the state must incur the costs. And if we've been engaging with this company and its directives for the past, since 2018, which has been about 3 years or so from now, and in fact, if this came about as far back as 2015, it's only been 3 years. And if there has been nothing forthcoming from the company from then up until now, then clearly nothing is going to be forthcoming. And therefore, the department at this point in time, as opposed to us telling us that they are still engaged, should we need to be told something that's more tangible? What is it that is being done by the department to make sure that there is progress in the matter? I think the second question that I wanted to ask, not just with this company only, but generally, what is being done to ensure that the state does not find itself incurring the cost of rehabilitation or closing mines, whereas we have companies, mining companies that will make profits and will then come and apply for liquidation and disappear and leave us in a mess as a country. What is being done to make sure that that does not happen? And then the second one, I think it's also on the issue of 2018 recommendations that were even made by the previous portfolio committee. That up until now, the department says we're still going to look into this, whereas those are things that were considered urgent back then. And perhaps had they been taken, they had been taken into consideration then and taken as urgent as they were then, we should have by now been given a comprehensive report that in terms of looking at the legal avenues, this is what we have looked into. These are the challenges. This is why we have not been able to find a solution, as opposed to what looking into this we are engaging. So perhaps let's get something more comprehensive rather than that. And then I think also I'm interested in just generally in your opinion, whether had the rehabilitation and the closure of this mine in particular been done and closed off on time, would the challenges that the community is facing right now be faced? And if not, who then gets held accountable? Because the sooner we resolve these issues, then it means that the sooner the communities are at peace and do not have the challenges. So who do we then hold accountable in the meantime while there's the back and forth between the department and the companies? Thank you.
Monday.
Thank you very much. Greetings to yourself and colleagues from the control committee, department led by DP, CGS, UTEC, SAP, Home Affairs, all stakeholders in the room. Chairperson, you see I'm making a moment because I'm a bit lost. We came because there were 8 women raped in a so-called abandoned mine where we got the information that there is a license holder by the name of the Kruger. So I thought maybe the presentation will tell us the how part in making sure that how the illegal mining is being dealt with. Chair, but let me go to this presentation that Kruger. For slide 14, it's highlighted in red under challenges. It's highly unsafe for officials to conduct compliance inspections. He made an example that DDG gave the directive to go look up at school where illegal mining was happening. Where was SAPS? Was SAPS involved? Because he says to us he took photos lying on the floor or on the ground. Where was SAPS? Because you know that the environment is unstable, then you go by yourself with your team without involving SAPS. Was SAPS involved? Because I think SAPS, if they still have intelligence, no offense, but I don't know whether we still have such happens in our country. Where was SAPS, and did they assist you when you dealt with that? Chairperson, I think I was just trying to go through the presentation quickly because I was making notes while it was flighted there. It says 62 to 70% produced is not coming from the farm. I am a bit lost. That's what you said, if I got you correctly. And I don't understand it. How does that happen? Then on slide, I think it's slide 2, the background that you gave us, the first bullet, illegal mining and trafficking of precious metals. I think we have an entity in the department that deals with the regulation of this, SADPMI. What role is SADPMI playing in this instance? Also on slide 4, bullet 2, if there is environmental degradation, why is not NEMA regulations being involved so that we deal with these issues? Chairperson, I'm not even sure on the issue that DMRE tried to persuade ESCOM, I think that is slide 7, to persuade ESCOM not to disconnect the mine that is not even having a financial provision, to disconnect the mine in terms of the lights and everything. They have a shortfall of 300 and something million. But you still want ESCOM, which is indebted about 420 billion. You ask ESCOM from a company that is supposed to make profit to say no, do not disconnect them. Logic, where is the logic in that? So, Chairperson, I want to agree that I don't think that Babu Makubela, the company that you mentioned, is going to take this loss. No business person or company in a sound mind will take such a loss unless there is something that is hidden that is not given to us. To say, Bona, they are taking this mine because they see a potential. Do you as a department see a potential for this mine to continue? We applaud the 56 shafts that we closed. Is it 52 shafts that were sealed? You're still left with 26. Why leave the 26? Is it a financial constraint? And how do these illegal miners get access? Are there any shafts that you do not know about? Because I think, was it last year when we went to when we were showing us where you are sealing the shafts? If there is military people or people from security who have security background that are conducting these illegal things, as you said, that there is a foreign hand in all this. Has the department maybe through IR or engaged with the people they deem to be the ones who are doing these activities? You know, we watched this with the chairperson. I think he was not sleeping because he was sending WhatsApp messages. We wake up 2 o'clock, the chairperson sent a message to say, watch 4-5, this is what is happening. I think he was terrified. But when you follow this thing, there were also white people there. Why were they not arrested? Subs. Maybe subs will respond. Because you're only talking about Lesotho's, Mozambicans, Zimbabweans. Does a crime have a kind? Let me start
We'll move on.
Thanks, Chairperson, and critiques to colleagues, the department and its entities, also to the stakeholders who are having couple of us. Chair, if we were in a portfolio committee in one of the rooms at Parliament, and we are giving the progress report on what was happening, indeed, that report would reflect administrative endeavors of the department in giving us an update. But for purposes of this exercise that we are here for, after what has happened in the county with the alarm that gets raised, I'm struggling to get the impact of such a report. And I therefore align myself to the question that Comrade has asked. The information there is valuable for us in terms of what needed to be done. Firstly, I don't accept the question of us getting a reply to the recommendations. Is it 2 years, 4 years down the line? For me, it's totally unacceptable, especially those recommendations in 2018 surface now that we are faced with a terrible situation. So it's not acceptable at all. I don't have any words to describe how I feel about that revelation about our recommendations. Could I also be clarified that during the course of the interviews that we were hearing, a lot has been said about the mind, maybe the technology being derived or so on, vis-a-vis what we hear that there is an operating license although it is not functioning. Can that clarity be given? Chairperson, at what stage, as a department, do we look very closely to the liability versus what is available? Here's a company that gives us a guarantee of 2 million rand, and at what stage did the department realize that we are now moving over 3 million to the extent that we are in 380, 381, 380, and we have a deficit of 380 million? Should the alarm bells not have rung immediately when the inspections were showing that we are getting into trouble with regards to the problems that are with the environmental impact? And I'm raising this, Chair, because in a number of other meetings, we have heard that if we can count around most of the companies that are doing business in this sector, we'll find that almost all of them, if their accounts are separated, they are in a deficit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that is one of the reports that we once had, that if we are required to do rehabilitation tomorrow, we are at a deficit of almost every mine. And the inspections and the realization that we are now at a point where we are more than 100-fold over that part. Now, if everything fails, it means the state will have to be liable for that exact amount. Okay? If the state is liable, it means somebody did not take care of his job to make sure that we are guaranteed that. Does it not fall within DG? The question of if we are in another institute like the municipality where we talk about unauthorized or getting the institution into trouble, where those people who are supposed to be looking at that matter should either be dealt with accordingly with regards to what they have signed in their performance. So that what we see across our channels, Chairperson, is the law enforcement that is outside of the minerals department, running around trying to fix what we should have actually fixed ourselves as a department. So I'm struggling to get that across, and I would like to have an engagement on that, Chairperson. Otherwise, Chair, I'm aligning myself to a number of other questions that have been asked, and I think also with regard to the portfolio taking up beyond this engagement. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. With your permission to yeah, you look nice too. I'm not sure whether what will come out of your mouth is nice.
Chairperson, greetings to the portfolio community and all officials, SARS, Home Affairs, and the department. And I think, first, let's say happy belated Women's Day to all the women that are here. I was born in Kuto. I currently reside in Klexto, Kanano, in particular. Chair, I think I wanted to ask the teacher and everybody who's here, do you understand how dire the question of illegal mining is? Mines benefits, Chair, and do minimum work to build the business. Women are raped, lives are lost, communities are terrorized every day. Police are overburdened. This is a declaration of war. What is happening? What is happening is a declaration of war. We must understand how dire the situation is. And it's getting worse and worse and worse every day. Did you? From 2018 until 2022, we are still dealing with recommendations, implementing the recommendations of the portfolio committee. Our term is ending in 2 years. So it says if we can make recommendations now, they'll still not be attended to. We'll then have to deal with other recommendations of other committees. Let's be serious. 26 shafts still remain unsealed today. This is a gap, Yamazamazam. Because that's what they tap in. Yeah? So it says we must urgently address some of these matters. What a visit last time when 20 Zamazamas died with the minister. Okay, what is CAPM? And the situation is still getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I'm saying, let's try by all means to give this matter the necessary attention that it deserves. Let's try by all means to deal with this matter. But this one of 26 shafts, I don't know, must be told, even if we're not giving an honest answer, that when will they be sealed? Because if they remain open, Zamas will continue to tap into that space. Because one of the things we must do, if we close this chapter, Zamas can't operate. Lastly, I'm glad that Home Affairs is here. Year in, year out, thousands of people come into this country. Year in, year out. You arrest them. You must ask them a question. They are undocumented. There are so many. How did they get access to this country? Because if we can't deal with those that are already here, this influx of people who are coming to this country will continue. If we can't deal, because we must close the gaps. We must say, no, these are the ones that are here. Why are they here? How did they get here? If we can't deal with them, others will persist. So let's close the gaps. Let everybody play the role that we must play. Chairperson, lastly, if we go back to the Constitutional Court judgment on the Nkandla matter, the CC is very clear that Parliament must play a more meaningful role to hold the executive and other organs of state much more accountable. That's a role that we must play. If people are not doing the things that they must do, we must say that do them. We must say that do them. Because sometimes we are blamed for things that are not ours. Sometimes we take that blame. Okay? Everybody, let him play this one. I'm glad everybody, many representatives. I'm glad some should say this is what we are doing, Tina is substituting them. Home Affairs must say this is what we are doing. But the department must play its role. The mines in this country have gotten away with murder for a long time. They benefit billions and billions of rands. It's us who must deal with the spillages. Their role must only to benefit. The CEO foreman must come here, welcome us, and leave. Not tell us that no, I'm leaving, I've got other matters to address. Because the arrogance, white arrogance and arrogance of capital, they don't have they've got disrespect for everybody, but they get away with it. And abnormality and normal. We are used to such tendencies. Parliament is here, we don't know to say no, we are leaving. We just decide to go out, president. But to allow these things, everything I allow, I come
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Also, I want to take this opportunity and greet new Chairperson, the members, and all protocol observed. Chair, one of the law enforcement officers from Lesotho stated that they, as Lesotho, firstly, do apologize for what has transpired, and they've stated that they do indicate to the government that there are criminals who commit crimes in Lesotho and come to South Africa and commit more crimes. However, South Africa is not cooperating when it comes to assisting the government of Lesotho to track down those criminals. Now, it gives me the impression that there might be bigger players at hand here. We might deal with the immediate challenge of the Zamazamas, the 14-year-olds, 18-year-olds that will be underneath those mines. However, even if we can arrest the 67 that have been arrested, if the supply or if the demand is not dealt with, new other people will come in that space and occupy it because we've not dealt with the source. Now, I want to ask a very, very direct question to the department, whether have they instituted any forensic investigation to check after this gold is mined, where does it go to? Who are the other players? Because it won't happen that some of the mines are part of the players here. Some of the ministers in our country are some of the players. Some of the wealthy business people in our country are some of the players. Now, that is why there's no political will to address this problem. As Honorable Kola is saying, recommendations from 2018, in 2022, they are still not implemented. Maybe particularly there is lack of political will to address this because some of the beneficiaries of illegal mining are these politicians, are these mines, are these businesses. So my question is that, have you had any forensic investigation that is independent that would look at where does this gold go to? Who are the major beneficiaries of this gold to? I can't imagine a 14-year-old coming from Mozambique, going underground and mining and knowing where to sell it. So that is why it's critical that we look at where does the gold go to, because that is critical in terms of stopping this problem that we have. Because one of the problems, like the Chair stated earlier on, we are reactive as a country, we are reactive as a department. We are here in KRUGERSDORP now because what transpired here. But what about it all? What about the other areas? Must we wait up until there's more people raped and killed, then we go there and we have another session like this? Why can't we be proactive? Thank you, Chairperson.
Not just one.
It's a very abusive relationship.
Thank you, Chair. No, Chair, I think we need not to emphasize the problem that we are facing as a country, especially when it comes to the issue of illegal mining and also the rehabilitation of mining. And secondly, since that visit in 2018, there is really no progress at all on the two issues. So instead, the reality is that the matters are getting worse and more worse. I just wanted to ask the department if that may be because of the efforts that are being applied that are not effective, or what is it that the government or the department itself is doing or is not doing to prepare especially the issue of illegal mining. Maybe it's, I don't know how to put it, maybe it's with the government system or what is, or the laws that are not allowing the department to do more or to do more to curb this issue of mining. Because we have been, since 2018, we have been talking the same thing, and it's clear they know. I must not but I just wanted to know if is it the efforts that are being applied by the department that are not effective, or what is it that is not done, the done to make to minimize these incidents of illegal or something that we must learn to live with as South Africans, that we have that as it is. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not begging you this time around. But let me say this one as members. Tomorrow tomorrow we expect, and we specified, but we'll deal with it tomorrow, that we want the minister or the deputy minister of these following departments. 1, mineral resources and energy. 2, police. 3, home affairs. To brief us on what has been done generally with illegal mining and its consequences. But we don't expect them then to send, if they are not there, to send someone less than a DG. But we want someone who is accountable. They are the ones who are accountable to this committee as political appointees. And this is a crisis. I just want to lay your fears. The issue here is that there was a visit to this company. Now, I think one of the Marans and Honorable Mashaule are almost correct, teaching. You know the problem with public service? Your voices are right, okay, they're down, just delay. But what you write must not be equal to the voice. With all due respect. Frankly speaking, you should have told us in this report that since the time you paid the visit, you made this recommendation, we are still battling to find a formula to resolve the problem, to an extent that the problem is worse than when we were there before. That's a fact. If I were to read your report, what it says the situation is worse than when you went there, which is why now, you can't explain to me, how do you sign an illegal mining activity as a mine? Let's just start there. Because this incident that happened is on the basis of illegal mining activity. How do you give me a mining right and say I must buy? I see what Honorable Lorima, the 380 million, that is a requirement liability. But on top of that, you then say, who takes responsibility to get rid of those illegal miners? So somebody must buy a mine. In fact, now, let's be honest, that mine is full of a bad stigma. Where you have 8 women were raped, and then you say you still want to pursue. Why are you persuading people when they're doing the wrong thing? The truth of the matter, if you read the recommendations, what they say, amongst other things, I don't understand. You say you've got a principle of use it or lose it. Where does it fit in this equation? I don't want to enter this terrain of government, of counting costs. I know you are not one of those bad examples. But if we're too serious about costs, they go with risk. They go with risk. Now, if the state is not prepared to take a risk, it actually says, what we have just experienced now, expect more in that area. Because the same regional, please give us the name, I don't know, forgot you said it's an active review, just didn't introduce the name. The same regional manager says, we cannot enter the space. We get surrounded. But there are people who are staying there who don't have to enter. They are confined there. They must live with that situation every day. We are sitting with somebody that we gave a mining right, simply because there is a 380 million liability. We will continue to do something. I'll be honest with all due respect for my student. If somebody asks me this report, what do you intend to do with this company? I can tell you now, sitting here, yourselves, you don't know. That's what, for me, the summary of this report. We don't know what to do with this situation. And that's why I'm saying, Honorable Mausala was correct that if you have to go and read this report in front of those people, I will tell you now, if I go with you, you will go and sit there, I will sit next to the door. So that as soon as they start standing up, at least I'm closer to the exit point, and then you remain with it, because there is no way you can come out with this report. I can assure you this one. It's not responding to what these people are confronted with. In fact, the risk they can tell you now, that the reason that this situation is what the department has created. That's exactly. Had you responded and had, in those recommendations, I can assure you one thing. I can tell you now, you said, I was just hoping that I would listen. One of the recommendations we said, because of the business rescue practitioner, one of the things we said, revoke the license. Revoke the, then I always tell you, I would be prepared to say you were in court with these people defending that you shouldn't repossess the mining right you granted them. But since you pursued them that time, like Honorable Kula said, 2018, you are still, in fact, you are at the worst situation now because, like all the members were saying, let's agree, the mine is unsellable. You can't sell it. If you are wrong, tell us. Now I want you to, for me, the last thing you must tell us, if we go there now, what should we tell those people? If we go there, let's all of us, we go and have a public meeting, which is going to be probably a possibility that we will have to take into consideration. What do we tell them? Do we tell them there's nothing we can do with this mine? We are still looking at yes, it's true, it's there, the issue of the harmonization of the insolvency law, including with the licensing law, MPRDA vis-a-vis the companies. Those are our own things. The only thing I disagree with you, Honorable Kruger, you can't shift the post and say this one, I saw in the presentation by the regional manager, this one is done by DFF, not FF, DFF, or call it DEF, you see. The other one is done by, you have a comprehensive system of licensing. 1, environmental compliance, 2, water use license, 3, your mining rights submission. We try to fast track the process there. Now surely compliance with these 3 can then be abdicated to another department. There is non-compliance. You know what to do when a person is not compliant. Now 2 things I read here. In terms of the report that you are giving us, it's not telling us about the processes with regards to the administrative management of the crisis created by the department. The second one, on the other side, the criminal side, you don't have anything that tells us what is it in the meantime that you are doing in order to manage the criminal opportunity. One thing you can do, you can't seal a mine that is still operational according to you. So we can't treat that mine as a disused mine or a derelict mine. The mine used, that person, those people are still, in fact the question would be, where is the mining right of this company? Have you applied to Treasury and say, the risk of this mine, if it continues to operate in this nature, it will result in what today you are experiencing. And therefore the state must take responsibility of the liabilities and therefore take the mine, sell it and recoup what it would have done in selling, in offsetting the liability. Because it's better for me if you say we are sitting with the mining right as a department because we are to pay the liability and therefore we want to recoup the costs. Only the person who buys the mine, the question of recouping the cost can, I'm saying if that also is possible. Put it simple, the tone here is very polite. There's nothing that shows shock. There's nothing that sends an extent of agency. There's nothing urgent here. Frankly speaking, it's a normal, there's something at school I used to say, illustration, you see, or a timetable. Timetable, always, 2 times 1, 2, 5 times 2, 10. Why did Kalapa go 6, 7? Put 6 times, well, that's what we are doing. Where we expect answers is there's no answer. I'm being honest with you. And DG, I would say this when we do the summit. I can assure you now, don't do what others have done before. This thing is a reflection of your failure of turnaround time. You have complained in the department, things that were supposed to come back. If you read, if you know the recommendation, it says you must brief the committee. But I can tell you, you are briefing us now because there is a crisis. Where maybe we'll get time to sit down, I will tell you now. If you want to succeed in that department, I'm sorry to say this before you answer. If you want to succeed in that department, go and look at all the commitments you have made, particularly to this committee, regardless if it's mining or what. Sit down, do a stock take. Each one must account. I gave you a simple example. If you, for a mining right, what is this thing, an exploration right, you take 14 days. You must know how many exploration rights have been applied for in a month. There can't be someone who sits in the department, you paid on the 15th. It means there are people who are sitting. Now, we are sitting with people who are supposed to do this work for the past 5 years. And they are getting paid every day. Every month on the 15th, they get their money. But they can't give us a reasonable information on the intervention that was asked for them to do. It's fine, you can answer. But my issue to you, crack the whip. This report, for me, Honorable Marans is very smart. If we in the portfolio committee, we would have said, can you go back, please? We'll take the cost of the flight we would have used. Maybe if it's visual, we would have been lucky. And then say, we need, I can tell you now, we need a report or an assurance of what the department is doing with regards to this. For now, I can't find an answer. Maybe when you come back a second time, you'll be much more bolder to give us answer. But I'm saying to you, because you are here, that's why I said we must bruise this other here. I'm saying it's too nice for a crisis. Okay, you can answer.
Thanks, Honorable Chair, and following us for the questions and the feedback. Honorable Chair, we do take the feedback and the advice. If I go straight to some of the points that were raised, I will respond to the generic ones. The first one is around what the presentation was supposed to address. We take the feedback. Our approach, Chairperson, was that when we looked at the program and the requests that came through, we did not want to repeat the presentation. So this session, we just wanted to focus on briefing you about what is going to happen, what is happening on the specific site that you're going to visit. We'll note that in the afternoon there will be a presentation by CGS and UTEC on the details in terms of the work that we do around rehabilitation. And tomorrow as well, we're planning to present overall in terms of the activities and the actions that we're taking to deal with the issue holistically. So that's how we had initially thought of approaching the problem. And we do apologize that it then caused obviously a misunderstanding or confusion, but that information is coming. With regard to, and maybe let me address there was an issue around the status of the site. I think as it was presented, the site as things stands is licensed. And I guess that the Makobela will go into again the details around that. The issue around the 26 shafts that have not been sealed, the list there focuses on ownerless and derelict sites because those sites are funded from the business. And just to give you a sense, I mean, this year's current budget for rehabilitating the sites is around only 142 million. Right, so it's under half of what you would have even needed on that particular one site. So from a budget point of view, there is a big constraint. There's estimated about 6,000 derelict and analyzed sites that needs to be rehabilitated. And the cost estimate that people talk about, I think around 60 billion or something to that effect, 60 billion. Right? So that's the extent of the problem when it comes to this particular site. So and again the 26 that has not been sealed. It's actually the 26 in the western end, right? And it does not include the rest of the other side. I mean, we all know of the issues in the Israel. The fact that we hear does not mean this is the only problem. There's a bigger challenge that is facing us. So I thought I should just put that into place. I guess let me allow Dr. and the team and the other colleagues here as well that have been part of the process from a history point of view. And maybe, Chair, let me touch on the point before I hand over the point around the report. Chair, we will beef up the report, and we do also take a point around the fact that there are people who are supposed to have certain things in those specific roles. And we'll come back, part of the report that will come back with what we are going to do. Where basically, if things were supposed to happen and people didn't do things, what then action will be taken. So we do take that point.
No, thanks, DG. I'll try and project. So, I've been asked to stay. Quite clear.
Not by me.
Okay, then let me just start by saying that when you assume in the public service, when you assume a role, you assume it with its assets and its liabilities. So I can say that I take responsibility for what has happened in terms of us not being able to respond to the 2018 recommendation. I want to start by saying, honorable members, that we have an issue in the country of criminality. We must accept that. I am exposed to it more than anyone else in probably in the team that DG is leading. Illegal mining is one major criminal activity. The second one affects mining, is cable theft. Coal is not able to get to the port because of cable theft. Trains have to be stopped. So that is a reality. The third one is fuel theft. That's why I'm saying I'm exposed to this. It's fuel theft. The pipeline of Transnet is being, tampered with almost on a daily basis. So the issue of criminality is real. So the illegal mining to us is part of a bigger problem that we have. That's the current reality. So I think that I want to assure members that together with the subs, we are seized with this matter, but
I think the challenges are huge, and the resources are also limited on both sides. We have colleagues on our side who are responsible for compliance, monitoring, and enforcement. In that, we only have 3 colleagues that have got sufficient training in gathering of evidence that can then support prosecution. That's the reality. So on the one side, one feels the challenges are there, but you are also constrained by the resources, human resources. So, but I don't want to make that as an excuse. As DG has said, yes, there was the dropping, the ball was dropped here. And particularly with regards to the recommendations that were made in 2018. So we need to revisit that. There was a question on maintaining. We don't believe that there are assets, Mintail has got assets that can be recovered. That is the reality. We don't think that they have got assets that the state can recover. The processing plant they had was stripped. So there is really nothing left. So what is left really would be to go after the directors of the company. Now that is something that I wouldn't want to say that's what is going to happen before we engage on that matter. Then there's a question on the previous regional manager, and I think it was also raised in the media, and it is advising currently some of the companies. I think one is Amage and the other one is the Pan African Resources. So I think that is, so for me, we then need to look at whether, and this is beyond just my pay grade, we need to start looking at, going forward, do we say to colleagues there must be some kind of a cooling off period? I mean, I guess I'm not qualified to do that. But I think it's something that is worth considering. But at the same time, when someone leaves a position, they then have to end the deal. And I think, there has to be that balance. On the issue of the 62 to 70% asked by Honorable Malinga, I think what we have picked up there is that all that they were processing was not from their own mind, it was from other surrounding operations. And there was a view that perhaps what they were processing could be from illegal mining. And hence the decision was then taken to say you can no longer process all that is not coming from your own operation. It is true that there is a role, in fact, perhaps it is something that would need to be considered, perhaps going forward for the rest of the week. There is a role for SAPM. They do license refineries, and so there is a need for them indicate how they ensure that those refineries process material that is coming from legally empowered operation. I think the issue of ESCOM, requesting ESCOM to assist, was to try and prevent vandalization. And as soon as the lights were off, and it didn't take long for the plant to then be vandalized. And the issue of foreign influence. When we went to, for example, when we went to KRUGERSDORP, we actually went there with the ambassador of Mozambique and Lesotho. And it was them who were helping us to communicate with illegal miners to come out, because they had to speak in Portuguese, they had to speak in Sesotho. And they were there when we, in a particular mine, were able to get out over 70, about 80, 90 illegal mining. So there is a role for foreign, the need to engage foreign governments is there, particularly governments of Zimbabwe, government of Lesotho, government of Mozambique. Because also we couldn't understand how the embassy got to hear that the illegal miners want to come out. So that operation, when it was conducted, the message seemed to have come from through the embassy of Lesotho, and that raises its own challenges. So we as DJ has indicated, we do accept the fact that we need to improve on our knowledge management, because those recommendations, quite frankly, were left unattended for the past 4 years. I'm going to leave some to my colleagues. I think the issue of the 26 shaft will probably be covered. And then if there are other issues that we have to deal with, the RM will, and again, I want to apologize and say that we had thought, as the DG has indicated, the broader strategy will be discussed tomorrow, and that today was just to give a background before we go on to the site. But Mr. Vezi, Siyabonga Vezi, with your permission, Chair, we request that.
So do we make his day?
Our troubleshooter. And then I must indicate that he's new in the role, but again, as we said, he assumes the liability.
In terms of the state of Mintails, and having made mention that the plant was vandalized, and the issue of amateur mining, are there any activities in the area? With regards to Mintails and amateur, there were 2 licenses that were being mine contracted under Mintels to mine, which is for Westgate's Monarch, as well as minerals and mining reclamation services, which are within the same area where Mokale Gold is. Those were the two operations at the time when Mintels applied for liquidation. In that process, they were then bought by Amaje Mining. So those two operations, which is in terms of the licensing is 132 and 133 MR, are being operated by Amaje currently. So they are active, those two. Which is, as I said, it was under Westgate's Monarch, as well as mineral and mining reclamation services. With regards to, I think the DG had covered the issue of the plant that was strict, which I thought it was the engagement that led to the department engaging ESCOM to try and keep the lights on there. With regards to a question asked by Honorable Malinga as to whether was SAPS involved in that first visit of mine, no, they were not involved at all. And I'm saying it just came in as a fact of conducting any inspection where we are being asked to go to a particular school. At that stage, one did not foresee anything because the complaint was, what is it that is happening around the school? So when we went there to then, school principal and the deputy principal took us to just behind the school, and that's where, and so saying, hardly 100 meters that we walked, and then we were encountered with that situation. But maybe just to state it on record that SAPS were not involved, because that was not what was anticipated. In fact, it was also a fact-finding mission for myself as well to establish what is happening so that we can provide a report. I think the issue about the 60% or the DDG has covered it, as well as the SADPMR. With regards to how possible is Pan-African resources that will rescue the situation. Based on the environmental authorization they've submitted, it is not specifically only for Mokale Gold, which is what we are presenting. It also includes the other two, which is the one that belongs to Amaje. So based on their due diligence, I suppose there is an indication that there is value that they can still extract out of the three operations. So it's currently the Mokale, together with the other two that belongs to Amaje. So that's where their due diligence is being undertaken as such. And all that we had been engaging with them now was to establish what is the financial liability. Also, when we having done our calculation in terms of quantum, throwing a figure of 380 million, there's been that dispute. So that's what we are still engaging in as far as the environmental authorization that we are referring to. There was also a question by Honorable Malinga that why NEMA regulation not being pursued. I can confirm, as far as Gauteng is concerned, that all new applications, there is sufficient financial provision for those applications. I'm talking to all applications that have been applied post 2004 and even post the 2014 implementation of NEMA. One that are still of a serious challenge are those that are in terms of the old order, their conversions, which is in this case in particular relate to those ones. And obviously now trying to read in between what I cited in one of on the slide, the issue of those transitional arrangements. Even if we were to say you want to cancel the licensing on the basis of financial provision, the mining companies come back and say no, but we still have up until this period as per the provisions. Those are some of the challenges. Not that it is an excuse, but those are some of the challenges that we've came across. I think the DG as well as the DG had covered some of the issues. I will, unless there is something that I have not many colleagues can also add in terms of providing clarity on some questions. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chair. There's two areas. One is the forensic investigation, particularly on Kanyile, who has our enforcement division, to talk to, in general, on some of the investigations that we engage in. But I think we also are under, we normally then get requested by law enforcement to be generic in when we respond, because so that we don't give away the strategy. But you will talk to that chair. And then
About generic, you must keep that answer and include it in your presentation tomorrow. We are dealing now with this. Keep back. We will look generic tomorrow. We want generic. I seem Caesar is quiet. You won't be quiet tomorrow.
No, thank you. And then the issue of financial provision, I think she will also just briefly talk to this check. When they use it or use it, I must admit that we have not been firm in enforcing this. And I think it's high time, because we issued, particularly dealing with the backlog, we issued a lot of exploration, rights, and we think some of the people are sitting on those rights. And so it's high time that we go back and look at whether people are actually doing something with the rights that have been issued. So it is one of the tasks that we set ourselves when we look at everything that we issue. I maybe have a list. Thank you.
I'm done, did you?
Yes, Chair. I think the Regional Manager did respond to the issue around the financial provisions, so I don't think we expect.
Let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. You see, with this report, and what is reflected in this report, we need it augmented, easy for your presentation tomorrow. But, like you said, we need an accounting and accountable response on the recommendations of the committee. 3, we need you in this report to tell us what is the current state from the time we were there. What is the current state and what is the problem? What are the challenges? The issue of the principle of use, you will see tomorrow why we say so. Principle of use it and lose it. We need it there tomorrow, and the financial provision. Honorable Lorena was reminding me even that time we even dealing with you. We also had a problem of opting. The list is endless. It's not just one on business strategy practitioners. I dare say you are sitting with Lily Mine up until today. So your problems, instead of resolving, are piling up. I wanted to just give members some stretch break and also say from where we are sitting, by the look of things, we want to make a recommendation that the committee can help us on the program. That we bring in MinTech and CGS. Instead of going there and come back here. MinTech and CGS. When we have lunch, we then go there. From there, we go to our places. That's why we prepare first on the recommendation, on the program. Two is that tomorrow, so that police be ready, and Home Affairs and DMRE. I've requested Hammond, because we won't be dealing with only this now, we'll be dealing with the problem, to give us a case study and experience on illegal mining, at least for 30 minutes, so that when you make your presentation, you know what we are talking about. That one is going to be comprehensive, not a general, a comprehensive, but generally covers the issues of illegal mining and its consequences and effects. The reason now there can be a confusion that illegal mining only takes place on disused and ownerless mines. This one is a person who's holding a mining right. So it means it's an official operation, indirectly, in inverted commas. So we have to look at that. The issue of financial provision, the reason I'm saying, Kruger, just be careful. When you close the related ownerless mines, it's a cost to the state. When you deal with a crisis of this nature on illegal mining, there is a potential that the state can recover, even if it is not equal to the cost of the intervention. That's the point I was trying to show. That 380, in fact, it's about 309, it's 380.9. So let's just say it's 381. That 381 is not the same than closing a derelict ownerless mine, because if we use our own authority, we can still recoup, even if it is not equal to that amount in terms of commercial venture. But can we take a 10-minute tea break and then we come back?
I think maybe next week we'll probably be attending the funeral of the DG. If you presented the DG, you will think you'll still come out alive.
Can you take a 10 minutes?